Are you cutting fat to lose weight or avoiding sugar like the plague? One day you're stirring butter into your coffee, convinced it's the ultimate health hack, and the next you're scanning every label for sugar grams, hoping it will make the scale budge. The sugar versus fat debate has become a dietary battleground. One day sugar is the ultimate villain, and the next it's fat. No wonder everyone's confused.
Is butter a carb?
But what if neither sugar nor fat is truly to blame for our ever-expanding waistlines? Maybe we are so focused on a single tree that we are missing the entire forest. Hello, my dears, and welcome. I'm Marina, your registered dietitian, here to guide you on your weight loss journey. After losing 80 pounds myself, I know how overwhelming and contradictory dietary advice can feel. So today, we are diving deep to uncover what's really behind the obesity epidemic. Is it sugar, fat, or something more? By the end of this video, you'll see why focusing solely on cutting sugar or fat might miss the bigger picture. But before we do that, if you have any questions regarding your weight loss journey, I will gladly answer in the comments. Obesity is one of the biggest global health concerns of our time. By 2022, nearly 43% of adults worldwide were classified as overweight and 60% were obese. That's 2.5 billion people struggling with excess weight and its accompanying health risk. Up until the 1980s, obesity was relatively rare and not a significant public health issue. But by 2050, half the world's adults and quarter of children could be obese, with 1.3 billion adults projected to be diabetic. This growing epidemic has led to an urgent search for answers and villains. Several theories attempt to explain the rising levels of obesity. One suggests that it's simply a matter of calorie balance, calories in versus calories out, with our intake increasing to unprecedented levels while our activity levels hit all-time lows due to more sedentary lifestyles. Another theory points to fat consumption as the primary culprit in inducing obesity. We'll circle back to that one. However, one of the loudest theories singles out sugar as the main villain.
Why am I so fat?
Sugar is a bittersweet affair. While we love the sweetness and the comfort it brings, it has also earned a reputation as a major health threat. But sugar isn't a new addition to our diets. It's been a part of human culture for centuries. Ancient civilizations chewed on sugar cane as early as 8000 BC, and by 4000 BC, it had been domesticated in India and Asia. By the 11th centuries, Europeans were hooked, and sugar evolved from a rare luxury to a global commodity. So, if sugar has been with us for so long, what changed to make it a modern health concern? A leading theory points to the sharp rise in sugar consumption coinciding with the obesity epidemic. In the US, sugar consumption skyrocketed during the 20th century, peaking around the year 2000 when the average American consumed a staggering 111 grams of sugar daily.
Sugar hit high! Sugar high!
Yet, here's the paradox. Since the 2000s, sugar consumption has declined, but obesity rates continue to climb. If we are eating less sugar, why are obesity rates rising? Could it be sugar, or is there more to the story? What do you guys think? Share your comments. When we talk about sugar, we often mean regular white table sugar. The FDA defines sugar as mono and disaccharides, including glucose, fructose, galactose, lactose, sucrose, and maltose. But for simplicity, let's focus on the main two types: natural sugars and added sugars. Natural sugars occur naturally in foods like fruits, vegetables, and dairy. These come bundled with fiber, vitamins, minerals, and in the case of dairy, protein, making them more beneficial for our health. Foods rich in natural sugars also tend to be filling, making it harder to overeat them. Research consistently shows that diets rich in fruits, vegetables, and even some dairy have positive effects on health. So, if anyone tells you to avoid bananas or carrots because of sugar, swipe left. Nobody gains weight from overeating fruits and veggies.
Study hard and eat more vegetables.
But do share with us if you've heard anyone making those claims so we can gossip in the comments. Added or free sugars, on the other hand, are introduced during food processing or preparation. They include sucrose or white table sugar and high fructose corn syrup as the two most common forms, but the category also extends to some natural sugars such as honey, agave syrup, fruit juices, and fruit concentrates. Added sugars can be found in sodas, candies, chocolate bars, ice cream, sugary drinks, and even savory items like pasta sauce, ketchup, and salad dressing. But here is a surprising fact. Added sugars are chemically similar to natural sugars, providing the same 4 calories per gram. However, their nutritional profiles and effects on satiety couldn't be more different. Foods rich in natural sugars, like fruit, are packed with fiber, vitamins, and minerals which regulate blood sugar levels and promote fullness. In contrast, foods with added sugars often lack these nutrients and fail to satisfy hunger, making them so easy to overconsume. Over time, this can lead to excess calorie intake, which leads to weight gain and metabolic issues.
Calories, calories.
Calories, calories.
But still, is that purely sugar's fault? One could argue yes, especially in the case of sugar-sweetened beverages. These drinks are a major source of energy derived almost exclusively from added sugar. In fact, sugar beverages are the single largest source of calories from added sugar in the US diet.
But one for whiskey, one for soda.
However, they provide no nutritional value beyond calories. And consuming too many calories over time leads to weight gain, particularly if the high caloric content of these drinks isn't offset by eating less food elsewhere. Multiple studies have found a clear link between sugary drinks and the promotion of obesity in both adults and children. So yes, this category seems straightforward, yet sugary drinks are just part of the story. Beyond drinks, sugar sneaks into countless solid foods, many of which we consume regularly without a second thought. That brings us to an important question. How are we really consuming all this sugar? And more importantly, is anybody eating table sugar by the spoon or spreading it directly onto bread? Not likely. But what we do eat by the spoons and spread on bread is something like this. And we also love these and these and these. Introducing ultra-processed, hyper-palatable foods. These are foods carefully engineered to be irresistibly delicious, arguably too delicious, making it nearly impossible to stop eating them. In more familiar terms, these are what we often call junk foods.
Secret junk food time.
UPFs combine high levels of sugar, fat, salt, and carbohydrates, often with artificial flavors to create textures and tastes that are almost addictive. Examples include chocolate, chips, cookies, fast food, ice cream, and similar items. These foods can stimulate the brain's reward centers, triggering intense cravings. They can also override our body's natural hunger and fullness signals, making it easy to eat far more than we needed before we feel satisfied. In fact, research shows that people consume significantly more calories when eating ultra-processed hyperpalatable foods compared to whole, simple foods like potatoes and apples. Unlike whole foods, which are packed with fiber and essential nutrients, UPFs are typically low in nutritional value. They lack components like fiber and protein that promote satiety, making it easy to overeat. On top of that, they're extremely caloric. By the way, 1 teaspoon of this deliciousness has 100 calories. So, when consumed in excess, they contribute to an overall calorie surplus, which is the real driver of weight gain. It's not just sugar alone. Consider this example. In one study, researchers compared 2 groups of women on low-fat weight loss diet, each consuming the same number of daily calories. One group included higher amounts of added sugars in their diet, while the other avoided them almost entirely. The outcome? Both groups lost the same amount of weight, proving that a calorie deficit, not sugar intake, is the key factor in weight loss. If you want to learn more about calories and science behind weight loss, please check out this video because you know, knowledge is power.
I make learning fun, incredibly fun.
Additionally, we do have experimental evidence that support a role of ultra-processed foods in obesity by promoting greater energy intake and weight gain. Even a randomized controlled trial by Hall and colleagues showed that participants consumed 500 more calories per day on an ultra-processed food diet compared to a minimally processed food diet. Over 2 weeks, they gained almost 1 kilogram on the UPF diet and lost the same amount on the minimally processed diet. And it's no wonder. Have you ever looked at the energy content of your favorite sweet or savory snack? Just 1 large chocolate chip cookie can have over 200 calories. For the same amount, you could eat 50 large strawberries. This highlights a critical point. Added sugar isn't inherently fattening on its own. Athletes, for instance, consume higher sugar diets tailored to their energy needs without negative effects on weight because they balance their intake with output. It's important to not single out sugar as the enemy to be avoided at all costs. Sugars are naturally occurring components of many whole foods, and the brain depends on glucose, a type of sugar, as its primary energy source. Systematic reviews and meta-analysis of cohort studies and randomized control trials have even reported no link between consuming dietary sugars within the American Heart Association's recommended limits and obesity. On the other hand, reducing calorie sources such as added sugars or sugar-sweetened beverages can support weight management. However, directly linking sugar to obesity is tricky since much of the research is observational and doesn't prove cause and effect. The real issues seem to arise when sugar is overconsumed, especially in ultra-processed foods that combine sugar with other ingredients. So sugar might be part of the gang driving the obesity epidemic, but it's not the ringleader.
Who's to blame?
If sugar isn't the sole villain, who or what is? Ultra-processed, hyper-palatable foods we mentioned frequently contain high amounts of sugar, but here's the twist. In many cases, over half of their calories come from fat. This raises the next question. Should we focus more on fat? In the 1970s and 80s, rising obesity rates fueled the belief that fat was the primary culprit behind the obesity epidemic, especially as cases of heart disease surged, particularly among men. Fat became demonized as heart dangerous, and emerging evidence against saturated fats seemed to confirm this. In response, the low-fat diet craze took hold, urging people to eliminate butter, oils, and fatty foods. The food industry quickly responded by flooding the market with low-fat versions of just about everything. Yet ironically, obesity rates continued to climb. So was fat truly the problem? One might argue that fat could indeed have been a factor, but we couldn't see it clearly due to the food industry's influence. When fat was removed from foods, sugar and other additives were often added to improve taste, distorting the original recommendation to focus on whole, unprocessed foods. If people had simply reduced their intake of fatty foods while increasing their consumption of fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grains, the obesity trends might have reversed. But this ideal wasn't realized because in practice, many turned to processed sugary foods such as low-fat cookies, cereals, and snacks that were marketed as low-fat, healthy alternatives. This misunderstanding that all carbs are good no matter the amount and fat is bad, combined with low-fat, high-sugar alternatives, led many to overconsume processed carbs, further contributing to the rise in obesity instead of lowering it. So the low-fat advice movement, rather than improving health, fueled the trend of nutrient blaming.
I can't go to Taco Bell. I'm on an all-carb diet.
Even today, the demonization of individual foods continues. But now, the focus has shifted to low-carb, high-fat diets, which some claim to have superior effects on health and weight loss. However, studies have shown that low-carb, high-fat diets are not necessarily more effective than low-fat, higher-carb diets for weight loss, especially when overall calorie intake is controlled. For some, low-carb diets may work better, but for others, low-fat diets are the way to go. An older clinical trial even showed that individuals who lost weight on a low-fat diet were able to keep it off over the next 2 years more easily than those who just followed energy-restricted diet. Nevertheless, the consumption of dietary fat today appears to be stable and declining in relative terms, leading some to conclude that dietary fat is not related to obesity. On the other hand, several pieces of epidemiological data support a relation of fat intake to obesity, and when participants in trial decrease their fat intake, weight loss follows.
It's the fat that makes you look fat.
So this dietary battleground is far from settled. But let's take things further with fat facts. Fats are calorie dense, providing 9 calories per gram, more than twice the calories of sugar or other carbohydrates and proteins. Fats are also the least satiating and cause a small increase in energy expenditure after eating. And it's true, increasing fat in the diet can lead to higher overall calorie intake, contributing to weight gain. Cutting back on fat in meals can help reduce intake. But as we saw in the 80s, we cut back on fat, so what's the deal? What are we eating and where is this fat coming from?
Ribeye in the pan with butter.
Despite their reputation, fats are essential for maintaining overall health. They support cell structure, enable vitamin absorption, and are crucial for brain function and hormone regulation. But their role in obesity is more complex. There are 3 types of fat found in our diets: saturated, unsaturated, and trans fats. We won't argue about the negative effects of trans fat, as many countries have banned partially hydrogenated oils and their overall consumption has dramatically reduced aside from fried foods. Likewise, we won't dispute the health benefits of unsaturated fats found in fatty fish, olive oil, nuts, and seeds. Their presence in our diet is beneficial when consumed in moderate amounts. But saturated fats still raise concern.
Butter! Oh man, you're killing me. Butter, my friend, that's elemental.
Saturated fats are found in fatty meats, high-fat dairy products, certain oils, and many ultra-processed foods such as burgers, fries, pizza, cookies, you know the goodies. The impact of saturated fat on health is one of the most researched topics in nutrition, and there's no denying that a high intake of saturated fat is negatively associated with cardiovascular health. But the key word in all of our story is high. When animals in studies are fed a high-fat diet, almost all species develop obesity. Sure, humans aren't rats, but you get the point. Periodic exposure to high-fat meals, particularly when hungry, may lead to overeating and obesity. The chances of becoming obese increase with high-fat diets and decrease with low-fat diets. But as we've seen with sugar, who is eating butter by the spoon, aside from keto enthusiasts? Researchers made that observation many years ago, and it's true. Most people do not like to eat fat alone. It is more easily consumed with something else. So butter or other saturated fats, once again, do belong in the gang of villains in the obesity epidemic, but they also aren't the leader. But maybe there is no leader in the nutrition department causes of obesity. Maybe they all work together as equals? Reintroducing, once again, ultra-processed, hyper-palatable foods. As we already mentioned, hyper-palatable foods are just too good to resist. When we combine sugar and fat, we get extraordinary flavors and high calorie content. These foods are easy to overeat.
Homie, have you been cheating on your diet?
Today, the average American consumes around 3,500 calories per day compared to the 2,000 calories needed. By some estimates, ultra-processed hyperpalatable foods now make up over half of the calories in the American diet. Calories from foods like cookies and chocolate come from both sugar and fat, or from fat and carbohydrates in the case of burgers and fries. A typical McDonald's meal, such as Big Mac, medium fries, and medium soda, contains about 1,100 calories, and that is not so much food. Or consider a pint of Ben & Jerry with its 1,000 calorie deliciousness. So, we can conclude once again that fat isn't the sole villain, although its role in our diet does need context. But this brings us to a crucial concept, one that might explain why obesity has continued to rise even as we cut back on both fats and sugars during different phases of dietary trends.
I will explain everything.
Here's where things start to come together. Obesity is a multifactorial issue, and blaming individual nutrients, whether fat or sugar, oversimplifies the problem. It's the broader patterns of our overall diet and lifestyle behaviors that are all equally important. When it comes to different nutrients, we could argue that obesity epidemic is fueled by both sugar and fat combined in ultra-processed hyperpalatable foods. While these foods are carefully engineered for maximum appeal, which keeps you reaching for one more bite, they are again just one part of the story. How can one burger or one ice cream here and there solely explain obesity epidemic?
I don't know about you, but I could eat this every day.
Now we can argue further that it's not here and there, that people eat this stuff all the time, so it must be overconsumption. When food is abundant and enticing, it's easy to eat more than our bodies need. Studies do show that the more food available, the more we tend to eat.
Our bellies weren't meant to hold this much food.
But once again, not the sole answer. Pinpointing a single cause of obesity epidemic is very tricky. Changes in our environment, like sedentary lifestyles and a shift to a calorie-dense diet, all played a role. It's not as simple as blaming sugar, fat, or any single factor. Instead, the problem lies in how these elements all come together. And yes, the basic energy equation still holds true. Calories consumed must equal calories burned, or the excess is stored as body fat. This principle is unshakable, and obesity does occur when calorie intake consistently exceeds calorie expenditure over time. Even small imbalances with just a few extra calories a day can add up to significant weight gain over years. Yes, we also eat more calories than ever in human history. But the simplicity of this calorie equation doesn't capture the complexity of the issue. Factors like food quality and accessibility, portion sizes, and individual differences in metabolism make it much more nuanced. Our environment, as we mentioned, plays a role. Human history showed us that obesity wasn't an issue when food was scarce. Wars, famine, and economic hardship prevented it. But today, we live in a world where food is abundant, affordable, and irresistible. Add to the mix a decline in physical activity, think desk jobs, long commutes, and screen time, and you have a recipe for obese nation.
Oh, it's a beautifully fat country.
So, is there a single villain? Unfortunately, no. Nothing in nutrition stands alone. Not single nutrient, sugar, fat, or otherwise is solely to blame for the obesity epidemic. Obesity is one of the most challenging health conditions to manage, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution. We still don't know what exactly happened and how to fix it. Comprehensive approaches are needed, involving national policies, food industry reform, education, public health initiative, and personal responsibility. But individuals can only make healthier choices when given the tools and resources to do so. Affordable healthy food, clear information, and supportive environments. It's a complex problem with no simple fix and actually pretty predictable reflection of societal and environmental changes over the past 40 years. While we may not have all the answers, one thing is clear. Business as usual is no longer an option. To tackle obesity, we need collective action and nuanced understanding that goes beyond blaming any single nutrient, food, or individual. Thank you for watching, my dear. If you found this video informative, please show it some love and make sure you never miss an upcoming one. And remember, as nothing in nutrition stands alone, neither do you. I'm here to support you on your weight loss journey every step of the way. Fingers crossed. Bye.